this episode, we'll be learning about becoming Flawesome from an entrepreneur, a speaker, philanthropist, partner, mother, and co-founder of Mindvalley. Welcome to the show, Kristina. How are you doing?
Thank you so much for having me, and I'm doing fine.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your presence here right now today. And I'm super excited about speaking about your book called
Mhm.
Becoming Flawsome. In this book of yours, you reflect about your own story and what it took for you to return to what you now deem to be your authentic self. Would you like to share
Mhm.
this story? Would you like to share this story with us?
It's inspired by my own story in a sense, but I do not share my story directly in the book because it's not an autobiography. Obviously, it's. I think it would be correct to say that it's a tutorial for people to try to find their path back to them. So I imagine that everybody who reads the book, who takes the book, that their journey is actually not to a destination that I know, because how am I to know what does it mean to be your true self? I don't know what it means to be your true self,
Exactly.
because you're the only person who can answer this question. So I believe that my book is more a companion. You know, like
Mm.
when when Bilbo Baggins went on his quest, he had Gandalf with him.
Yeah.
So I believe my book is that companion who is there for you to maybe refer to, but it's ultimately the journey of each and every person to find themselves again.
Yes, thank you so much for giving these gifts to the world, like a guideline to help us to find our true authentic self and encouraging us that we could be full of flaws, full of imperfection, basically, and still love ourselves and appreciate ourselves for who we are. Yeah, I know in this book you're right. I took it from your Instagram. In your book, you write your dragons will not cease to exist, no matter how well you build the walls of spirituality around them. Then I was like,
True.
wow, okay, please, Christina must explain this to me. Please, can you enlighten me on what you mean by this?
So that passage, that exact sentence, comes from a chapter which is well, for now it's called "The Weapon of Love." You know, I've been in personal growth and transformation for 20 years, and if I'm not mispronouncing the name, but I think it was Professor Wellwood who came up with the concept of spiritual bypassing, which essentially means that you are trying to hide behind spiritual ideas from facing your real problems. Of course, I'm
Mm,
paraphrasing his definition of it. And of course, having been in personal growth for 20 years, I have seen that happen in front of my eyes. We all do that at one point or another. To a degree, I mean, we all make the same mistakes. We're human, which is beautiful. In fact, mistakes is what inspires us to change.
mm,
So that passage about dragons, I believe that every human being has some kind of dragons in their dungeon, in their darkest dungeons. You know, I like fiction, so some of my examples are a little bit uh, like fairy tales rather than clear words. So I believe we all have our dragons, and dragons is exactly those flaws, imperfections, or as I call them, scratches and dents that we
mm,
acquire as we go through life, and the things that we are maybe ashamed of, or maybe we don't want to show the world, or maybe we think these are our flaws and we need to eradicate them. So we have those dragons, and r- it's hard, it's scary to face them.
yeah.
So often, what we resort to, rather than facing them and asking ourselves a question, "What do I do with them?" We just dive into something else.
Mm,
We start. The journey towards the perfect version of me.
mm,
And it's an interesting thing because it's an escape from a real problem. Yes, you might want to become a better version of you, but unless you deal with that dragon, that better version of you is actually this parallel universe, which is not in touch with reality. And the reality is that the dragon is there, and it will stay there unless you face it and you figure out what to do with it.
yeah. Yeah, that's true. I love that so much. You could become the Dragon King. Why I love the
That's a
why,
huge thing.
Why be scared of the dragon when you could become the dragon king or conquer the dragon and become a much more better person, and instead of suppressing your feelings or your emotions, I believe, or your flaws or locking them up in a wardrobe.
There's a lot of depth in the idea of Dragon King because the um, the traditional path of personal growth is that we have an ideal and we strive towards that ideal. I want to become a better person. I want to change myself in certain ways. And in very practical terms, it would be like, let me eat healthy and exercise and get the body of my dreams. And then occasionally we think about spirituality and character and whatnot and emotions maybe. But the thing that I like about the idea of Dragon King is that very often it is precisely those things, those dragons, those things that you are ashamed of, where
Mm,
your true value lies. So unless you find the courage to face them, you might actually never to realize where your true value is, where's that unique value that you have for the world. So I don't advocate eradicating the dragons.
mm,
I talk about befriending them, about choosing them to become your blessing rather than your curse, and about learning to live with them.
mm.
And that's, I think, what Dragon King could could mean.
Yes, yes, yes. Just embracing who you are for what it is, like the flaws, the good parts, the bad parts, everything together. Ride on the dragon and fly high or something like that. I'm picturing Game of Thrones in my head right now. I'm so sorry.
You obviously love your dragons.
Yes, I do. And this explains to me. I was reading on your Instagram also. You wrote that same post about spiritual bypassing, and you also
Mhm.
talked about the consequences. So I mean, in this case now, that means we are not going to be doing this spiritual bypassing, but embracing these dragons of ours. But I don't know, for the listeners out there, I don't know if you could briefly explain what spiritual bypassing means and the consequences that it could have, towards us or towards the people around us too.
So, spiritual bypassing is an umbrella term to a concept which is known in psychology as defense mechanisms. And spiritual bypassing doesn't encompass all the defense mechanisms, but a part of them. If we were to talk about that a little bit more profoundly, then the idea of defense mechanism is whenever we face an emotion which we cannot deal with, we create an alternate reality which helps us to deal with that emotion. A very simple example would be such defense mechanisms as denial or distortion. If you think back to when pandemic hit, there were a lot of people who denied that it was even happening, me included actually. I kind of knew that the pandemic was happening, but I denied the idea that it could last for years. I thought it's a matter of a few weeks.
Mm,
Or distortion, where you, for example, present the reality in the way that is more palatable to you. So rather than facing the situation, for example, your loved one has a serious health problem, and you may be distorting the reality by telling yourself that, um, it's not as serious, or even about yourself. So
mm,
these are the extreme examples. But we humans, we are not taught, contemporary humans, we are not taught how to deal with our unpleasant emotions. So we resort to a lot of defense mechanisms. A lot of them are just natural reaction of our body to what's going on. So the ones which are a little bit more typical to spiritual bypassing are, for example, reaction formation or projection.
mm,
Projection would be if you feel something, but you deny that emotion to yourself, or you deny that feeling, you might project it on someone else. You might actually uh, fight someone else's demons rather than facing that you have those demons. And I'm simplifying, of course, the explanation of that defense mechanism. Reaction formation is when you deny yourself the feelings and you pretend or you invent feelings which are a little bit more palatable. So people who are into personal growth and transformation, very often we are idealists and perfectionists. So rather than admitting that I might be totally irrationally I might irrationally dislike someone or be irrationally angry, but it doesn't fit the picture of what it means to be a better version of me. So rather than facing that I am just a human being and I just have human emotions, I might come up with something a little bit more presentable. For example, I don't know, I'm being righteous, or I'm worried for you, and actually I do like you. It's you who are crazy. So there are very obvious ways why it's bad, because you distort your reality. You distort the picture of yourself. So how can you talk about any relationship with yourself if you do not know who you are? And you cannot truly know who you are beyond the things that you write in your bio if you don't understand how you interact with the world. You might imagine yourself to be one person, but you might be a completely different human being unless you learn to be honest with yourself. And with defense mechanisms, as something that we go to all the time, you can't be honest with yourself because defense mechanisms, in essence, are a distortion of reality. Now, when it comes to spiritual bypassing, there is another aspect to the damage that it does. Spiritual bypassing may be very damaging to the environment of the person who's practicing that.
Mm.
So examples would be people who do spiritual bypassing may be dismissing other people's emotions and feelings and sufferings. Like, why are you so crazy? Why are you so negative? Cheer up. What do you have to be upset about? Look, there are people who are more, I like, I'm a positive human being, good vibes only.
Mm.
Don't be upset for nothing. This is dismissing other people's feelings, and it is damaging to other people. And if you have been on the receiving end of that, you know how horrible it is, because you start doubting yourself, you start doubting your values, you start doubting your value, you as a human being of value. You start doubting your experience of life, and think, what's wrong with me? Why am I not feeling happy and content when I'm supposed to?
Mm.
Why I'm not feeling sad enough? Why I'm not feeling, I don't know, joyful enough? Because somebody judges or dismisses our feelings. Another example, I will not go into all the examples, but another example would be actually, justifying suffering. Everything happens for a reason. It's actually a very typical spiritual bypassing phrase to throw around. Or, for example, rolling off the blame. You are the one who is crazy. What's wrong with you? Like, there's no problem. I don't have a problem with you. You have a problem with me. That's a very classical spiritual bypassing move, which is damaging to your environment, to you as well, but to your environment as well. And that's the thing. I I think it's okay if people want to torment themselves, but the problem is that we tend to torment the world around us.
Yes, and that's one thing we have to avoid, to make the world a better place. Sometimes we deal with these demons deep inside of us, or these dragons. Let's go back to use the word dragons. We deal with these dragons deep inside of us, and due to the frustration of we locking them up, and them scream back at us, we then divert this frustration also to the people around us, to our neighbors, to our friends, our loved ones, also spilling out the blood that we are shedding, that we're not healing from, the injuries that we're not healing from, the blood from it, we are spilling up or spilling it
Hmm.
at our neighbors, basically. And that's something we have to change and work on. And I believe
Hmm.
I believe your book, Becoming Flawesome, will help us, to take those steps to heal those wounds first, so that we don't spill our blood on other people, and also
Hmm.
to become dragon kings. That's my favorite word from this podcast episode.
You have really amazing analogies. I really salute you with that, because I thought I was a geek, but you are actually even cooler. Spilling our blood on others. I
Mhm.
have a slightly it's really graphic, and it's really strong, and I think it's really I mean, it deserves its dramatic effect. I have a
Mm.
friend who says it a little bit more a little bit softer. She says, hurt people, and I
Mm.
absolutely agree. We it's exactly because we suffer that we make the world around us suffer. And I wish people learned to be a little kinder, and a little bit more patient with themselves,
Yeah.
realizing that doing that is actually a service to humanity.
Yes, it is. You're totally right. So for someone out there who is listening and is saying, Christina, I would love to, be much more authentic with myself and live a much more happier life. Like, what's one piece of advice or one word you would love to share with them?
It's an interesting thing, and I like that you put this two things into one sentence. I want to be more authentic, and I want to be happier.
Mm.
So I believe that being at peace with yourself is an absolute prerequisite for happiness, because you cannot be truly happy if you're not at peace with yourself. I mean, if you don't like yourself, I just can't imagine being happy. Yet, being at peace with yourself doesn't necessarily bring you happiness. And there is I do not know statistically how many people, but there is a group of people for whom authenticity or being true to themselves also means not being happy in the classical understanding of this term, which is fine. I mean, I I'm a huge advocate of happiness, yet I think that it's the choice of every single human being. Do you want what is it that you want most in your life? What is your highest value? Is your highest value happiness? Is your highest value success? Is your highest value serving the world or
Mm.
fulfillment? We all get to choose. We can have all as well, of course, but we get to choose, do we want to have that in our mix of what it means to live a proper human life, extraordinary human life? So, yes, being honest with yourself is a prerequisite to happiness, but it is not a guarantee of happiness.
Yeah.
And what does the person need to achieve that? Without going into too much detail, because my book actually talks about that
Mm.
in depth, we need three qualities to develop and to enhance three qualities. One of them is honesty, and I'm talking about self-honesty, not honesty with the world, but honesty with yourself. And it is much more treacherous path than it looks on the surface. And that's the interesting thing, because a lot of people do live in their own version of reality, and the definition of delusion is that you're not aware of it. When you're a fish, you're not aware that you live in the water. So
Mm.
that's one thing. The other quality is kindness, because honesty without kindness is mean,
Yeah.
and you have to have kindness. It's absolutely um, necessary for your own safety. And the third one is courage, because this journey is going to challenge you. So you need courage.
Yes. Wow. Honesty, kindness, and we need that courage to pull us through the journey. And all of this is documented in your book. Can you tell us where to get your book from and how to connect with you and maybe work with you in the future?
So my handle everywhere is Kristina Mänd, my name, a shorter version of my name, and Kristina is written the European way with a K, so it's Kristina Mänd. And then this is the same handle in Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever is out there. And my book is on my website, which is also kristinamand.com/book. Super easy.
Yeah. Also, I'm going to place all of this information in the show notes of the episode, most especially your website. It has all the other details to your Instagram and social media platforms, other social media platforms too. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. And I encourage everyone out there to pick up the book and become much more flawesome and embrace your dragons. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasurable conversation. And yes, see you.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.